Good evening, this is NTV, 10 o'clock news, Yulia Pankratova, Alexey Pivovarov. Today's meeting of Vladimir Putin and George Bush was preemptively called one of the most important international events, and the topic that was discussed most was the one that was not even formally declared. Bush promised to raise the question of democracy in Russia, and Putin made it known that he is ready to have this conversation. Whether this conversation took place and how much time did it take against the background of other topics is the question for Vladimir Kongratev, our correspondent, brought in live from Bratislava. Vladimir, are the talks over? Yes, I just came back from Bratislava. Behind me is the illuminated fortress. Behind me, there was an unexpected development during the talks. We expected a few minutes of one-on-one initial discussion between the presidents, and then we expected everybody else to be invited. Condoleezza Rice, both Ivanovs, Sergei and Igor, and a new national security advisor, but everything happened differently. Vladimir Putin and George Bush spoke one-on-one with only interpreters present for an hour and a half, and then for an hour with others. They were probably discussing the topics that you've mentioned. Later, Vladimir Putin will say, some of the president's thoughts I deemed very important. I intend to use them. But which ones he did not say. Nevertheless, everybody guessed which ones. After that, Vladimir Putin and George Bush held a joint press conference with 150 journalists, 50 from the U.S., 50 from Russia, 50 international journalists, mostly from Slovakia. They discussed the creation of a new system of protecting nuclear facilities and in the foreseeable future, the fact that Iran and North Korea should not have nuclear weapons. They were united on that. The accession to the WTO. Bush promised to accelerate this process, and later Bush said that in 2001, strong countries are created by strong democracies, and this is the main pillar of welfare. Putin did not comment. After that, there was a A&Q session, and the first question was, George Bush, you looked Putin in the eye 4 years ago, and you said that he was an adherent to democratic value. What would you say now? 4 years ago, we decided that whenever we agree or disagree with each other, we will tell about it frankly. We do say what we think. Yes means yes and no means no. And now I would like to say that for me it's very important for all the countries of the world to value democracy and the rule of law. First of all, I'd like to say that we have discussed these problems in depth, one-on-one. Secondly, Russia has made its choice in favor of democracy 14 years ago, independently and without any pressure from the outside. We did it for ourselves, for our people. This is our final choice, and we have no way back. After that, Andrei Kolesnikov asked a question. He is famous by publishing a couple of books named I Saw Putin, Putin Saw Me. I would like to ask a following question. I think that maybe you're not that different, essentially. You should agree that the regimes that exist in the United States and Russia could not be called completely democratic. Andrei Kolesnikov doubted the democratic nature of the regimes in both countries. He said that Netherlands is a much more democratic country. I had a feeling that both presidents took offense at that, and here's their response. We are a transparent country with transparent laws. We all live according to the Constitution of the United States. All the laws are constitutional, and that is ensured by the independent judiciary. We observe the rights and liberties of our citizens, and we solve all our problems peacefully. I would like to second my American colleague. I am convinced that democracy is not synonymous with an anarchy lawlessness. It's not an opportunity for somebody to rob a country and its population. Democracy means first and foremost the ability to adopt democratic laws and to implement them on the part of the government. And the next question of a Russian correspondent pertained to the freedom of press and media. He also asked Putin to comment on the situation in the United States. Putin said that he is not a minister of propaganda, and he said that the mass media should not be put front and center, and one should instead think about the active American-Russian dialogue. And after that, George Bush was asked whether he was happy with the response of his colleague. The most important what I heard from Vladimir Putin was his statement about the support of democracy in Russia and impossibility of turning back. For me, this is the most important conclusion of today's meeting. As you can see, the press conference was dedicated to the topic of freedom, democracy and democratic processes in Russia. But what the American administration is going to do, we don't know. But on the eve of the press conference, George Bush said that sooner or later all the countries will acquire democracy, and even cited Moldova and Belarus as examples. Thank you very much. Vladimir Kondratyev gave the coverage of the meeting of Vladimir Putin and George Bush. Former Prime Minister Mikhail Kasyanov described his plans for the future. His conference was called exactly a year after his resignation from the government. In the near future, according to legal and requirements, Kasyanov will need to let go of the country house, car and detail provided for him by the government. However, it is unlikely that he will use public transportation. Today, he announced his ambitious plans. After 25 years of public service in various governmental agencies, prominent agencies, my future lies with business and public activity. I made a decision to open my own private company named MK Analytica. The company will support investments. His plans, however, include not only investments. The former Prime Minister said that he would spend next few years improving the situation in the country, and he says that what is required is the consolidation of democratic forces. And here's what he says about his presidential ambitions. You know what? Everything is possible. However, the most important thing is not who will lead the country in 2008. It's important that whoever is chosen to be the president would head the movement of Russia towards democratization. Kasyanov described his recent trip to the United States. In the United States, I met with various politicians and businessmen. We discussed and analyzed the situation in the world. And on many aspects, we hold similar views. For the rest of the day, the statement of Kasyanov was discussed by the left and by the right. Vice Speaker of the State Duma, Lyubov Slyska, thinks that the statement on the part of the former Prime Minister could be considered a serious bid. The Secretary of the Presidium of the Political Council, Leonid Gosman, said, "For us, Kasyanov is a serious and much respected figure." Gennady Senegin of the party Russia's Patriots also mentioned the respect Kasyanov commands. Sergei Ivanenko, deputy chairman of the party Yabloko, says we should not jump to conclusions. Mikhail Kasyanov is the most colorful representative of the family, the party of oligarchs, and in this sense, we should consider his possible political activity. I don't think it has anything to do with the consolidation of the opposition and democratic forces in Russia.